Hi, and welcome back to the Vancouver Life Real Estate Channel. We have created a 5-part mortgage series with our colleague and friend, Mikhail Ferreira from the Bank of Montreal. In this series, he answers the most asked questions when it comes to financing real estate. The topics include how and when to finance a pre-sale condo, your options when it comes to down payments on a home, how and how much equity you can access within an existing property, the best ways to finance investment properties, and lastly, how to purchase real estate within a corporation, especially good episode for my realtors and other business owners who operate as an incorporated business. Our guest Mikhail has been with the Bank of Montreal for over 15 years now and consistently finances more real estate than any other mortgage specialist within that organization across all of Canada. Safe to say, he knows what he's talking about and has some incredibly valuable information to share with you. The 5-part series launches on Thursday, February the 23rd, and new releases will come out every Thursday at 3 p.m. They're quick 10-minute episodes that get right to the topic at hand. Be sure to check them all out, as I found them incredibly informative and know that you will too. All right, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back. This is episode 5 of our 5-part mortgage series with Mikhail Ferreira from the Bank of Montreal. Today's an interesting one I'm personally excited about. It is all about how you obtain multiple mortgages. So for all my investors or potential future investors out there, this is one you're definitely going to want to pay attention to. Mikhail, thanks as always for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. Good to be back.
Excellent. So let's talk about how this works. Maybe I've got my primary residence and I've got the investment fever and I want to buy 25 investment properties. Where do we go?
Please not 25.
25 is a little bit of a stretch, but there is many ways to look at this. And, just to kind of kick things off in how to understand this is every lender has different rules on this, right? And just to kind of quote what we do, the max that you're allowed to have is 10 properties, and you're allowed 5 with BMO, right? And that can vary lender to lender. Some allow more, some allow less. And so it's important to understand first that, right? Before you get out there. And a lot of people don't understand, like, how do if I have a property and it's renting for X and the liabilities are X, how does that help me if I'm trying to buy another one? Well, a lot of people don't know this, but there are there's something called a rental offset, a calculation that every lender has a different calculation, but it allows you to basically buy a property, use take all the liabilities from it, subtract it from the rental income, and it yields a number, right? So it's either positive or a negative, right? So say you have a property and it's cash flowing. So property A, earns $100 cash flow. We take that $100 and we add it to your income. So basically it doesn't exist.
Right.
And in fact, it helps you.
Yeah.
Property B, adds another $100. We're adding that. Property C subtracts $200. Okay. So now you got 3 properties that basically X each other out.
Yeah.
Right. So, this is an important strategy when understanding how to actually purchase multiple properties and how to make this work for you. Because if you get stuck with the wrong lender, you're going to get, you're not going to be able to make those next steps. And you're going to probably if once you disclose too much on the rental side, I want to do this, I want to do that, sometimes they'll stop lending to you altogether. Yeah. So, you want to make your intentions very clear and understand what the rental calculations are. However, when I say that, I'm like, you want to talk to the individual so that they can explain to you, okay, well, if I want to buy this property and I want to buy another property, how would I be able to do that? And if they can't articulate very clearly to you, okay, well, we're going to use rental offset and, blah, 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 then you know that it's probably not the best place.
Yeah, it's probably also not going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Interesting.
So in buying these properties, does the origination of the funds matter? And why? Obviously it matters, but what I mean from that is, can it be line of credit? Can it be cash? Can it be RSP?
Yeah. So, in many cases, we're using one property that's levered for another. In previous, I spoke about, refinancing a property to use it as your next property. So I'll give you an example where this calculation is maximized, right? You have property A that you currently live in that has equity. You want to buy property B, which is your next home, by converting property A into a rental. Okay. So you refinance your current property, you pull that equity out, you now have your 20% to purchase property B. Now, what we do is we know that you've taken all this debt for the purpose of purchasing that next property, and we say, okay, well, that property is going to rent for X, right? And then essentially what that calculation leads to is, again, is it a plus or is it a minus, right? So I say it's a 0, right? Well, no, I mean, in Vancouver, 90% of the time, it's usually it's a negative. Usually you're short a couple $100 a month, right?
It's hard to cash flow.
So you're converting that property and we're refinancing it. So for sure, it's probably going to be short a couple $100 a month. Then we take that off your total income, and then we're just qualifying you on the next property.
So what if you've got? Would this still be applicable if you have properties across Canada? Or let's say you've got a vacation property in Toronto that you Airbnb. Can you use that income?
Yeah. So actually, funny enough, in Q2 of this year, we are, I think, one of the first to market with short-term homes, short-term rentals.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. It's got no details, and not even sure if I'm allowed to say that. But
Honestly, I mean, because income in many ways is income.
Yeah.
According to the way you're trying to finance things, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of brings up my next point. I remembered it. Is that you said there's a maximum of 10 properties.
yeah.
What if they actually all cash flow? And you're making a case for, hey, listen, I'm actually very good at this, and you can see that they're all positively cash flowing.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you lend on an 11th property?
Yeah. So to clarify, so like say in this particular instance, we're allowed 10 and 5 currently with Bank of Montreal, right? But other lenders have different ones.
Right.
Now, there's a fine line between being a personal buyer for rental purposes and being a real estate operator, which is now a commercial thing.
Right.
And you don't want to cross that threshold, because if you get categorized as a commercial borrower, like a real estate operator, you have to go through commercial process. It's extremely expensive. It's just not worth it. At that point, you're pretty much done.
Right.
So this is more meant for people to try to get like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 properties, and people have opinions on that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be all in one specific area.
So what you're really saying is recycle one for a better one, if anything.
And the most common one that I see, it's not a goal of attaining 10, but usually people think, okay, so in my particular situation, I think about, well, I have 2 kids. I'd love to have a property for each one of my kids. One rental, 1 resident. So I'm aiming for 4 or 5 properties, including a vacation home. How do you get there? Right? Use one to buy the second by offsetting that one. Then you go from there to the next one, offsetting that one. And it kind of moves on from there.
Yeah.
So all the properties that are not in question are being offset against their own potential rent. Long-term rent, right? So that has, like, if you have a home that has a rental, it has to have a rental agreement, you have to have proof of rental income, right? So if you have those, then it's no problem. Where you run into issues are with when people don't have proper rental agreements in place.
Do you have to show a certain amount of income for a certain period of time as well? Like if I rented it last month,
Yeah.
right? Would I and it's producing positive cash flow?
Yeah.
Would that?
Yeah, so
still count.
there's depending on the lender again, but what we typically do is if it's a brand new residency, we just order something called a market rent, right? Which basically we send an appraiser to say, well, based on the neighborhood and based on other homes exactly like this, so it could rent long term for X, right? And usually that's just a more up to date number. But where a lot of people have rental agreements, we can use an active rental agreement with the previous month's bank statement to support it.
I see.
Right?
Okay.
So we want to make sure you're collecting that income, right?
Of course.
And that is an important piece, because depending on how much you do get the situation, I've had this tenant for 10, 15 years and they pay like $100.
Well,
no, but it's very low, and then it doesn't help you too much.
You might not have the answer to this, and that's okay, because the city of Vancouver is proposing this Plex plan. I don't know if you've heard of it, but let's say you have a single family home.
Yeah.
You're, depending on how much land you have, you're going to be able to convert that into a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. And under the guidelines in terms of owning 5 or owning 10 or whatever that is, if you currently own that property and then divide it into 4, are you now hooped in terms of trying to rent beyond that?
Not necessarily, right? Because there's doors, there's properties, there's different ways of looking at that, right? If you have where it's split like into 4 brand new units, and
Or I build a laneway, for example, right?
No, that's one property.
Okay.
Yeah, that's important because oftentimes we'll see a person that buys, there's the upstairs, the downstairs, and the laneway, and we can use all 3
for one property.
Oh. Yeah. Oh. So in those cases, that's where we usually see the rent come back.
Okay.
Also, I mean, important to note though that each bank has their own set of rules when it comes to mortgages.
Yeah.
For example, RBC, last time inquired, they will grant somebody, as long as they qualify, 5 mortgages, regardless of how many other mortgages they have. You could have 50, 60 mortgages. If you still qualify, they will grant you up to 5 more.
Wow.
So knowing which banks to work with when and in the specific order, if you're looking to build a portfolio of pretty significant size, let's call it over 20, 30 kind of doors, then you definitely want to speak with an investment advisor who can track you through which banks to work with when.
100%. Very important.
I also like the idea of picking up a 4-plex and it can be considered as one property.
Yeah, there's as long as it's not 4 individual separate addresses.
Correct.
With a split,
4.
Then you're okay.
Yeah, 4 PIDs. I get that. Yeah, but yeah.
So, what are add backs, and can you walk us through?
There's important to understand the difference between an add back and an offset. And again, these are bankers' terms. These are mortgage broker terms. But essentially, what it is an offset is when you're taking an existing property, the liabilities, and you're subtracting it from the rent, right? And it yields a number. That is an offset, right? An add back is just when you have a property, all its liabilities mixed in with all of your liabilities plus the rental income plus your income, right? So it's like it's just everything that's a minus and everything that's a against each other. And the add back is always less attractive, and actually it yields a higher number from a debt service standpoint. So when you are looking for lenders, you're looking for the highest offset. Some lenders will actually use an offset on the subject property that you're buying, which is actually the strongest that you can get. And again, you want to find out who those are, but generally speaking, when you're buying a property, it's better if your previous property is converted to rental, the new one's becoming the residence because the old one gets offset. Right. So there's multiple ways. Everybody's so different, but I think a lot of people, the best way is to talk to your mortgage advisor, explain what your goal is, not just the short term, but the next 2. Like if you truly have a plan for 2 or 3 or 4 properties, make that heard and say, okay, well, how do you plan to get there, right? And then it's a lot easier to say, look, that's not going to work here. You need to go here. You need to do this.
Or don't buy that right now. Buy this.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. And I've always felt that if you're going to make a move, you should take care of your residence first, which helps you offset the previous residence, right? Previous property, because making a move and buying a secondary rental, unless you're in your forever home, might handcuff you later.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes
so
sense.
if you move up into the home that you're going to be content in, and then you accumulate your investment properties.
Right.
I think this was an incredible demonstration in how important it is to work with a professional if you are considering, or a team of professionals, clearly, if you are considering purchasing multiple properties. So Mikhail, thank you for your help today on this. For those that are looking to buy a portfolio of real estate, how do they get a hold of you?
You can give me a call, shoot me an email, or reach me on Instagram.
Perfect. Great. We will include all those contact details in the comments below. Thanks as always for tuning in, and everyone have an awesome day.